7 o'clock in New York City, and this is a Fox News alert. A package, medium-sized, blew up inside a FedEx facility in Schertz, Texas overnight. Moments ago, federal agents saying it is likely linked to those 4 other Austin bombings.
That FedEx center right there, it's in Schertz, Texas. That's about an hour outside of Austin. It's just northeast of San Antonio.
That's where Todd Pyro is in Austin. Todd, we thought we had the latest talking about the bombing on Sunday, but now here we have a bombing at 1 in the morning on Tuesday.
Exactly. I mean, all of our live shots that we set up earlier today were all about this Austin bombing. And then, what do you know? We get this information just within the last couple of hours on the bombing there in Schertz. Let's tell you what our affiliate there in that Schertz area is letting us know about right now. That package blew up when moving from an upper conveyor belt to a lower conveyor belt just after midnight. It reportedly contained shrapnel and nails. You will recall that there were also reports of nails in the tripwire bomb that went off right where I am standing here in Austin. A woman who works at that FedEx facility was not hit by shrapnel, but did get a headache from the blast. She is expected to be okay. The FBI, ATF, and San Antonio Bomb Squad are all on scene. Police asking people in that area to stay indoors while they investigate. Meantime, neighbors say right where we're standing right here is where the Sunday tripwire bomb took place. You can see a divot there right behind me. You can also see some blood on the street as well. The Austin American-Statesman, the local paper in the area, says we are going to stop it. That is from law enforcement. And really, law enforcement said 2 very interesting things yesterday. Yes, they do believe that this is a serial bomber, and specifically, they do believe that he has taken his deranged acts to the next level.
Well, he and his friend were riding a bicycle about a block from their house. It was so dark they couldn't tell, and they tripped and set off this explosion. Didn't see it. It was a wire. And it blew up.
That's the grandfather of one of the latest victims in the Sunday blast. The AP reporting the blast left what appeared to be nails stuck into his leg. Again, that nails theme continuing here. This 4th blast here in Austin, which injured 2 men in their 20s, follows 3 package bombs at homes around the Austin area just this month alone, which killed 2 and injured 2 others. Authorities, including more than 300 FBI agents on scene, warn that the sophisticated tripwire is, quote, a significant change in the bomber's techniques, and they are hoping that the bomber makes contact with them so they can, in their words, understand his message. Meantime, the Austin Police Department is asking people to not let their guard down, warning, if you come across anything that looks suspicious, do not touch, handle, or disturb it. Keep a safe distance and call 911 immediately. And again, we're up to now 5 bombings, according to the feds. There's no apparent motive, and they don't seem that much closer to getting it. Of course, they're probably keeping some things from us, but at this point, we just don't know why this keeps happening.
It's not like they don't have enough guys. I mean, they got 500 officers, have already done 236 interviews, and that number is growing.
It continues to grow, and that was before what just happened a few hours ago there in Schertz.
All right. Todd Pyro, thank you very much. Let's bring in Terry Turchi. He used to be with the FBI. He's the guy who's responsible for catching the Unabomber. He joins us from the West Coast. Terry, yesterday, extraordinarily, essentially the police in Texas called for the bomber to open a dialogue with them, to get the conversation going, to figure out what his motive was. You say what he did, or she did, with his package to FedEx, he's talking to him now.
Absolutely. He's communicating still with his bombs, and that may be the chosen way he's decided to commute, but to talk to them. But I'll tell you something, Steve, if he's going to keep doing this, all of these cases are different, and this is certainly different. This is almost a crime in a steady evolution and in motion. It's kind of like sometimes when you get involved in those manhunts and everything changes by the hour. For all of these bombs, 5 bombs to be delivered between March the 2nd and now is just extremely extraordinary. And that may very well indicate that there's more to come. And this is a game changer if, in fact, they decide or conclude that the FedEx package is connected to the other bombs. This is yet another significant development because a lot of those hundreds of agents are going to be out scouring the area. They're going to find out where that package was dropped into the FedEx mail stream. And that in itself will yield an awful lot of information and hopefully the kind of information that could lead them to the bomber. There's another interesting thing, and go ahead.
Terry, it's a cockiness. This guy is saying, yeah, now I'll communicate, and I'll tell you, I'll dare you. I'm going to make you think it's easier to find me. That's how confident I am you won't.
Well, good point, Brian, because arrogance is a major commonality in a lot of these people. Certainly, Theodore Kaczynski was one of the most arrogant, narcissistic people you'd ever see. And I would imagine this person is the same way. And also, another commonality is anger. So anybody looking at all of this and thinking about trying to kind of be creative in their thinking and looking at everything the police are saying should really start to wonder if they know someone who's kind of suddenly vanished from the scene, has missed work for days, or hasn't acted right. I mean, any little piece of information now could help bring all this together because it's so fast moving and there's so much that's going on out there.
Terry, the Unabomber took 18 years for you guys to catch him. So in this case, people want something to happen fast. I used to live in San Antonio. My friends are texting me saying, we want to catch this guy. They're telling their kids now who love to open packages, don't get near them. From a psychological standpoint, in your experience with the Unabomber, what do you think? Why did we go from what appeared to be a hate crime, a sick hate crime, because he was targeting people that that were minorities, and then it went to a different level, and now he's targeting and evoking so much fear in families by hitting FedEx. So it's coming through the mail now. It's not just an unmarked box on your doorstep. Psychologically, what happens? What are these bombers like? You said narcissist, but is it more than that? Are they seeing this on the news and then they want to take it to the next level?
Well, we actually did a study after Unabomb and before Eric Robert Rudolph, the Olympic bomber Ainsley, and we found these people want to matter in society. They want to make a statement. Most all of them, just almost, and many of the mass shooters are the same way, wanted to belong to something much greater than themselves, wanted to belong to a group, and yet they were never able to really do that. They weren't people who fit in, and so they decided to go ahead and make their own mark on society. Sure. And in many times with these bombers, even create their own group. Theodore Kaczynski was the terror group SC. A guy out here in the Bay Area who's on the top 10 list, Daniel Andreas San Diego, was the Revolutionary Cell. Eric Rudolph was the Army of God. And so you get my point. This guy could very well eventually communicate, and we may have him tell us that I'm a group such and such. But sure. It's too early to tell, but we'll see. But this is a fascinating development this morning. If, in fact, they connect this bomb to the others, there's a lot going on right now that could very well start the process of bringing this to an end.
Terry, what does it tell you? Apparently, according to the local TV affiliates down there, it sounds as if the package originated in Austin. Somebody dropped it into the FedEx stream in Austin. It went to Schertz, Texas, and then it was bound back for Austin.
Well, again, I'm assuming it might have had an address on it. It's going to be interesting to kind of hear about that. But bombers are creative, and they do all sorts of things, and only in their mind does any of this make sense. So some of that is hard to figure. But what you do as an investigator is you take every little piece of information on the face of a package, on a packaging record or anything, and you play it out as far and as long as you can to see if there's anything there, or if it kind of eventually factors into some sort of pattern. Remember, they're setting the stage in all that they do to find this guy immediately. At the same time, they realize they may not. So they're trying to create the best possible record so that they can go back using computer analysis and human on-hand assessment and try and figure out anything now that they're missing, as all this massive amount of information is coming in from all these interviews that these people are doing.
Well, Terry, have things changed now since the Unabomber? Because it did take you all a long time, 18 years. Things were different then. We didn't have the computers like we do now. What's changed so that we can be reassured we're going to find this guy sooner than that?
Well, that's a great question. You know, we learned from the Unabomber, and we applied many of the lessons in Unabomb to Eric Robert Rudolph, the Olympic bomber. And it only took a few years, unfortunately, to find him. But one of the important critical differences is we never stopped. In other words, we didn't start and exhaust leads and then disband the task force and then literally have to start all over when the next bomb happened. That was a big change, and I can see them doing that now. They're putting a lot of people into this, and they're gearing up for the long haul. What you've got to do is stay on these cases, because in America, we cannot have people indiscriminately killing others and putting bombs in mail and having people have bombs in their kitchen. We just can't allow this to happen.
Meanwhile, if you want people to call and you want them to help, you got to answer their call. You got to show you're interested. So you have to follow up on all the leads you're requesting. That's a challenge. And then I hear, you know, as of before this bomb exploded at 1 in the morning local time, this bomb was the 4th bomb that was found, was labeled as sophisticated. Would you label it the same way?
Well, I don't know anything about it. I would say this overall pattern, though, of the way this man is conducting himself is pretty elevated, and certainly he's not going to stop until he's caught. And so I think they understand that they're in for both the short haul and the long haul, and it's a tough challenge.
Terry, what would make it go off at the FedEx place and not the person who grabbed the box from this person?
Well, you know, all these devices are, we'll just go with what we know from the other 4, are kind of designed like most bombers design a package. When you do something, they're passive, and when you do something like touch them or lift them or pick them up, just like the Unabomber's packages, the actual act of picking them up or doing something begins the circuit, which begins the detonation process. And so something probably happened with this package that caused it to go off prematurely, and fortunately, there's going to be a lot there that they can use, and fortunately, no one got hurt as they did on the others.
Well, we don't know if this was the only package. I mean, maybe this is the only one that has exploded so far. But Terry, in your history of looking at bombers, have you ever seen somebody change their MO? For instance, in the beginning, it was they would leave the device outside somebody's house and put a box over it. It did not look like something that went through the mail. And then there most recently was the IED alongside the street with the tripwire. And now he's using the mail. So in a short period of time, three different delivery systems, essentially.
Well, actually, we did see that in Unabomb. You know, he placed half of his bombs, half of his 16 devices, and he mailed the other half. And he was always changing up kind of the methodology and the kind of the lure to attract somebody to do something with the package so that it would explode. So in this instance, I'm not tremendously surprised or taken aback by this. It's kind of normal to see people as they learn more to escalate the sophistication of their bombs. But in his case, it looks like a lot of these bombs, or maybe all of them, were probably built before he started this. And what he's escalated, or what he's changing, is he's changing the environments and the means by which he's getting these bombs to his targets.
So, Terry, I'll let you work your contacts and continue to take a look at this. Thanks so much for joining us today as we try to examine the 5th explosion in Texas, in and around the Austin area.
Thanks so much, Terry.
You're welcome.
You know, I wonder if FedEx, every time I send something FedEx, I actually go to the facility. I wonder if they have cameras, and be able to track down who this guy is. That would be easy, because you can track every package back to whoever's sending it.
Right, but, you know, FedEx does have those little kiosks, essentially, where you just open it up, but then there would be fingerprints. You know, right now they're trying to analyze all the stuff that they've got. You know, there are nails, there's metal shrapnel, there are parts of boxes, there could be handwriting on the label, and ultimately they do know exactly who that package was intended to, who was the person.
And the lady who said she had a headache because she was there at the FedEx facility.
Yeah, maybe.
So if that means she didn't have nails in her body, maybe that means it didn't blow up completely. I mean,
apparently it was a percussion thing. It was like nearby.
Right, but maybe they can look at the box, because you can't get fingerprints if it's exploded already.
All right.
Maybe,
well,
we'll
they can. The FBI is amazing.
There are ways to do it.
Right.
Yeah.
Todd Pyro will be on that. Meanwhile, let's shift gears if we can. Yesterday, Eric Holder thought, I've been quiet for so long, might as well speak up on this Andy McCabe situation, where he said, listen, he knows what many Democrats knows, that a lot of what Andy McCabe did has been examined since the summer of 2017. This wasn't just happening here in March of 2018. He weighed in yesterday and was trying to give Jeff Sessions some advice, like stand up to your president if I have to, like he ever did. Listen.
It may be that at the end of the day, his separation, his termination is appropriate. But you don't rush that component of it to meet a deadline that I think the president essentially set. If you're the Attorney General of the United States, you run the damn Justice Department, and you got to have the guts to look at the president every now and again and say no.
Just let me go through all the times Eric Holder said no to the president, Obama. Okay, got nothing.
We don't know about that. But what he's leaving out is the fact that it wasn't the President of the United States, it wasn't the Attorney General who fired Andrew McCabe. Ultimately, it was the Attorney General, but it was at the behest of the Ethics Department there at the FBI. They looked at some of his bad behavior in the past, and they said, look, he essentially was a leaker and a liar, and he had to go. And ultimately, the Attorney General decided at 8:45 on Friday night, it was time to go.
Mark Levin, who hosts Life, Liberty, and Livin on Sunday nights here on the Fox News Channel, was on with Sean Hannity last night, and he weighed in on this. Listen.
You remember Eric Holder? That jerk repeatedly lied about his knowledge when it came to Fast and Furious. The only attorney general in American history to be held in contempt. He targeted journalists at the AP, at Fox. He refused to investigate abuses at the IRS. He was involved in the pardon of Mark Rich. Even the DOJ IG at some point testified senior officials under Holder were blocking access to the documents.
I think he really likes Eric Holder.
All right, so that put it in perspective. Meanwhile, 15 minutes after the hour, let's talk about what the president was talking about yesterday in New Hampshire. He's going to tackle the opioid epidemic as promised. He's doing it through a lot of law enforcement and also pointing out that the majority of the opioids that come across our border are coming from Mexico. Even though some of the fentanyl is coming from China, it gets to Mexico and it's coming across our borders. He wants to crack down on it.
Yeah, he wants to build that wall to prevent it. Listen.
This epidemic can affect anyone, and that's why we want to educate everyone. The second part of our initiative is to reduce the supply of illicit drugs. 90% of the heroin in America comes from our southern border, where eventually the Democrats will agree with us and will build the wall to keep the damn drugs out.
Well, that sounds good, to keep the drugs out, ultimately. The heart of his plan, though, and something that's getting a lot of attention, is that they would crack down on dealers. The Department of Justice is going to seek the death penalty in certain cases with the dealers. Also, they would like to see America's doctors prescribe 1/3 less number of addictive painkillers over the next 3 years. They're encouraging drug companies to develop non-addictive painkillers, which would also help. And also, one other component, guaranteed access to an overdose reversal drug called, I believe, naloxone, going forward. So these are really good, concrete steps. Now all they need is Congress to fund it properly.
I just hope that they understand there needs to be a rehab portion to this, and it's not cheap. They're hard to staff. And you got to let them. Nobody wants them in their neighborhood.
That's part 3 of the plan.
It's got to be significant.
Treatment.
It's got to be significant.
Yeah. So it was pretty emotional. Melania, the First Lady, came out first, and she thanked the law enforcement. She talked about the babies that are born that are addicted to opioids because their parents are in the problem there. And the president brought up a family who had lost their son, who was a smart kid and ended up on the streets addicted to drugs.
Made one bad decision, went into the parents' cabinet and took out.
That's right. Yeah, if you're a parent and you're watching and you don't need the painkillers anymore, get rid of them, because he went to the kitchen and opened up the cabinet and found that, and not to blame the parents because it's not their fault at all. But yeah, that one pill led to it just snowballed. But anyway, the president talked about that, and he talked about giving the death penalty to these major drug dealers because so many people are dying as a result. Listen.
Whether you are a dealer or doctor or trafficker or a manufacturer, if you break the law and illegally peddle these deadly poisons, We will find you, we will arrest you, and we will hold you accountable. We have to get tough on those people. And that toughness includes the death penalty. Some of these drug dealers will kill thousands of people during their lifetime, and they'll get caught and they'll get 30 days in jail. Or they'll go away for a year, or they'll be fined. And yet if you kill one person, you get the death penalty or you go to jail for life. We are just doing the wrong thing. We have got to get tough. This isn't about nice anymore.
The reason the president was in Manchester, New Hampshire ranks third behind West Virginia and Ohio in overdose deaths. It looks like over 100 Americans overdose on prescription pills and fentanyl and heroin every day. We're going to be talking to Sarah Huckabee Sanders, White House press secretary, about the president's initiative when she joins us at 8:30 Eastern time right here on this program.
From one woman to the next, from Sarah to Jillian.
That's right. Good morning, guys. Of course, we're following the news out of Texas, but we are following other headlines this morning, too, starting with this Fox News alert. Severe storms turning deadly overnight. Off-duty Georgia State Patrol Trooper Tyler Parker killed when his car lost control in an intense rainstorm. His young daughter is seriously hurt. Fierce tornadoes knocking down trees and ripping off roofs in part of the southeast. This church in Alabama, just one of many buildings destroyed. Thousands of homes and businesses without power. Storms threaten the southeast through the rest of the day. It might look like an accident, but officials say a naked woman intentionally crashed her car into a sheriff's station. Deputies say her car was filled with accelerant and the car burst into flames when she slammed into the building in Broward County, Florida. A worker inside the building pulled her to safety. That woman is seriously burned. Her motive is still unknown. More tax relief could soon be on the way for millions of Americans. Republican Congressman Mark Meadows says the next phase of President Trump's tax reform is in the works and could be unveiled as early as Tax Day.
It's not enough to rest on what we've done in the past. We need to be aggressive and continue to work on the agenda going forward. We've got to be serious about delivering each and every day, not just 1 month out of the year.
Meadows says permanent individual tax cuts could be part of the plan. Send it back to you.
Phase two. All right, Jillian, thank you.
Yep.
Meanwhile, straight ahead, Hillary Clinton tried to explain away her comments trashing female Trump supporters, but is she sorry? Her former campaign strategist says not really. Mark Penn joins us live next.
White women who were going to vote for me and frankly standing up to the men in their lives and the men in their workplaces were being told she's going to jail. You know, you don't want to vote for her.
Remember when Hillary Clinton took that swipe at Trump voters over in India? Now she's apologizing, kinda. On Facebook, she posted a long letter. Well, part of it is this. I understand how some of what I said upset people and can be misinterpreted. Here to discuss this is the chairman of the Harris Poll, former 2008 Hillary Clinton presidential campaign chief and strategist, and author of this great new book, Microtrends Squared, Mark Penn. Mark, congratulations on the book.
Thank you.
It's out now. Before we get to it, I got to ask you about Hillary Clinton's series of speeches. She's getting blowback from Democrats now. Do you think that she healed anything with her long explanation?
I think that's, I think it's the kind of thing that, aides would run to her and say, you got to take this back. And then she issued a statement basically walking it back somewhat and acknowledging that she made a mistake. You know, in the book, I find it's the opposite, that there's closet conservatives, that women who voted for Trump are in fact terrorized about explaining what their real views are. So it's quite the opposite of what she said.
What's going? You know her personally. I mean, we ran this montage of excuses. There's about 60. I mean, who's she listening to? Who's she talking to? And it's been a year and a half now.
Well, I think it's time for her to get off that. It's time for her to talk about the issues that she spent her life on. Forget the election. Donald Trump had a message that worked from Indiana to Pennsylvania that attracted working class voters that Hillary Clinton used to get when we started with her in 2000.
You see, we saw that Connor Lamb won by running from Nancy Pelosi. Tim Ryan got a lot of votes when he tried to challenge her leadership. Do you think among the Democratic Party there's a sense they need new leadership?
Well, look, I've always been part of the centrist wing of the Democratic Party, and so I've always been one that says we've got to get swing voters, and Conor Lamb was able to do that.
Right, I think it's better for the country if there's somebody in the middle on both sides. All right, I want to talk about micro trends because you're in the business of getting people elected, but you also understand technology and how it's working in our lives. And I thought the subtitle was telling the new small forces driving today's big disruptions. What do you mean?
Well, the book really details a lot of different changes to help people understand what's going on. Those changes some of them are demographic, like there are more nonagenarians or more old people than ever before in our country and what they're going to need, while young people are kind of much more footloose and fancy-free, spending 10 or 15 years before they get married. These changes on both sides are creating kind of a disruption that people don't understand that I try to explain in the book.
You also go through technology, and you were Chief Strategy Officer for Microsoft, so you said this is not new to you. Tell us what technology really is doing and social networks are really there for.
Well, I talk about relationships with bots, and I say people have to be really careful. For example, is Alexa a he or a she? Most people say a she.
Yeah.
It's an it. It's a bunch of code designed to sell you on whatever Amazon could sell you. So it's very careful. I think people have to be very careful here that what they think is working for them can oftentimes be sales tools or data that they're providing to tech companies or really used for advertising. I don't think there's necessarily something wrong with it, except there's no disclosure. And in the book, I say be very careful about these relationships and let's have disclosure.
When people knocked at your door to sell you a vacuum cleaner or encyclopedia, you knew what they were there for. Now when you go on Facebook, you think it's to meet people, but you say Facebook is also an example of a sales tool.
Well, look, what Facebook and a lot of the other products did was first they had a service for you. Then the demand of earnings turned it into an advertising service. Then it was no longer working for you. It was about selling things. And I think you notice Wikipedia is a nonprofit. They didn't have that. If Wikipedia hadn't gone nonprofit, you'd be buying your keywords probably.
Now, you know what they tell us? We're giving you something to make your life better. You're revealing your interests and your wants, and we're providing that for you. What's your answer?
And look, there's a bargain there, but you don't understand your side of the bargain. You're giving up your privacy. You're letting it's like having a salesperson in your closet in your home. If you want that, okay. But what I say in the book is you got to know this. And driverless cars, I don't think are coming for quite some time. Someone just died yesterday. Let's understand that technology has limits. But this book is about technology, but it's also about the social relationship changes that we're seeing in society, and it's a lot of fun.
Right, and we can figure out where society's going when we take this in. Microtrends Squared is now out. Mark Penn is here to talk about it. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
And thanks for your expertise. Meanwhile, 31 minutes before the top of the hour, and get this, we have another Fox News alert. This is what we woke up to today. A fifth explosion. It's rocking Texas, the Austin area. The feds are swarming a FedEx facility right now. We are live with an update. Plus, we have analysis from a CIA officer, Buck Sexton, live.
We have a Fox News alert to tell you about a package addressed to Austin, Texas, blowing up inside a FedEx facility overnight.
The FedEx Center is in Schertz, Texas, about an hour outside of Austin, where they've seen 4 explosions in the city of Austin in the past month.
And that number's growing now. Todd Pyro is live on the ground in Austin. Hey, Todd.
Hey, Brian, just within the last half an hour, we have more confirmed updates from our Fox affiliate near where that FedEx facility is, including the package was sent from and addressed to an Austin address. All right, let's get right to the facts that we know at this time. Specifically, that package blew up when moving from an upper conveyor belt to a lower conveyor belt just after midnight. Reportedly contained shrapnel and nails. And like we've been reporting all morning long, that seems to be the latest addition to this bomber's demented MO. A woman who works at that FedEx facility was not hit by the shrapnel, but got a headache from the blast. She is expected to be okay. The FBI, ATF, and San Antonio bomb squad are all on scene. Police asking people in that area to stay indoors while they investigate. Of course, stay with Fox as we stay on top of this fluid situation that now spans multiple parts of Texas, here in Austin, and they're in shirts. Keep in mind that we came here to Austin to cover the Austin bombings. We're going to have a lot more on the specific tripwire bombing that happened here on Sunday in our next half hour. But it's such a fluid situation. Things seem to be changing by the minute, guys.
It does indeed. All right, Todd, reporting live from Austin. Thank you very much. Joining us here on the couch, we got Buck Sexton, a former CIA analyst, also with the Intel Division of the New York City Police Department. Buck, the randomness of these targets is stunning.
Makes it a lot harder to get some kind of profile of the suspect here, because you can't put together right now who has been attacked with these bombs. The moment you're talking about a tripwire device triggered by any individual walking by, then you know that it is intended to be random. And yes, we have an address, it seems, from this FedEx package, but I'm sure it's some kind of a faulty address. It was an address that was put in there to throw people off. They're going to be pulling apart all of the residue, everything left over from these bombs, looking for DNA, looking for different components that could be traceable. That's a painstaking process, but at this stage, there's very little else for law enforcement to go on here to get a sense of who this suspect might be, what the profile of the suspect should be.
Well, a couple of things it could be. If you want to just remove the fingerprints and go through the forensics, they have one way. Is there another track that looks at what Austin means, what South by Southwest means, capital of Texas? Could they be trying to send a message in the city they picked?
I'm sure some of the psychological profilers in the FBI and other federal agencies are going to be looking at how could this be terrorism, or what would it fit into in terms of an extremist context. But based on the target set right now, you can make some very general theories about how it's anti-government activity, it's domestic terrorism, but we really don't know. There's also just the possibility that this is somebody who is psychopathic, enjoys maiming and killing innocent people. We just don't have anything to go on. There's no manifesto, there's no social media profile to work with, which is, I think, why law enforcement is looking at this and saying, hey, we need help. We got a $100,000 reward out there for anybody who can give us information. That's because right now it's a race against the clock and they don't have a lot to go on.
What's happening right now behind the scenes? Are they contacting FedEx saying, did you get video? Who does this label? Who does it track to? What's going on behind the
FedEx,
scenes?
hopefully, Ainsley, will be the break here, because it's likely that this individual had to go to one of their facilities somewhere. There will be surveillance footage, most likely, of whoever dropped off the package there. Although we'll have to see. Was it a situation where they were able to get it into a Dropbox? I mean, FedEx will have to work backwards.
Maybe there were cameras around the Dropbox.
Maybe there were cameras on the Dropbox. I mean, they're going to be looking at anything that was done here at any stage of this process and just trying to get some basic profile of the suspect. But this one seems to be, I would wager, the most likely for there to be a break in the case.
It's almost like he's cocky. It's almost like he's cocky, saying, I dare you to find me.
If the cops yesterday said, hey, bomber, talk to us, what does that mean in the case?
I think that law enforcement believes that this is an individual who wants to be heard and is engaging in this horrific activity at some level because there's a message. And so by law enforcement giving that moment of attention and saying, come forward, tell us what it is that you want here, maybe then you'd get at least the beginnings of some kind of a dialogue. I'm sure it would be through an anonymous social media account of some kind or something, an email account somewhere. But they just want to have something more to work with here, because every day that passes, as we know, could be another day when one of these random bombs goes off.
No kidding.
Very
All right.
scary.
Buck, thank you
Thanks,
very much
Buck.
for
Good to see you all. Thank you for having
Buck,
me.
right behind you is Jillian. She has some more headlines for our audience. Hey,
That's
Jillian.
right. Good morning. Good morning, Buck. Good morning to you at home. Let's start with this. The affluenza teenager who sparked nationwide outrage claiming he was too rich to know right from wrong could be released from jail in 2 weeks. Ethan Couch has been serving a nearly 2-year sentence in Texas after violating probation by escaping to Mexico with his mother. Couch was drunk when he crashed into a car back in 2013, killing 4 people. But a judge ruled he was too rich and spoiled to know better, so only gave him probation. Who better to lecture about income inequality than a group of millionaires? Senator Bernie Sanders hosting Senator Elizabeth Warren and filmmaker Michael Moore at a town hall to get their take on the 1%.
Is on the rise. So crazy, the rich right now, the greed, the level of greed.
You create these circles of poverty that just wipe out opportunity for anyone.
Despite talking income inequality, the three are worth more than $55 million combined. This group of teens never end their school day without paying respect to Old Glory. The Kentucky high schoolers have been properly lowering and folding the American flag ever since one of them noticed it wasn't being done correctly.
I saw the flag being lowered and the janitor just kind of put the flag under his arm. I kind of couldn't stand for that.
It's really about respect, I think.
The kids all come from military families. That's a look at your headlines. I'll send it to you.
When I was growing up, we actually had a flag crew that would go out and do that every day and take it down. Those were the days. All right, Jillian, thank you very much.
Thanks, Jillian.
Where's Janice Dean? That's what I like to find out. And
I'm
is she
right
still
here.
holding to this nor'easter story?
Listen, the National Weather Service just upped our snowfall totals here in the New York City area. Maybe 10 to 15 inches of snow. I'll believe it when I see it. We're right on that line again of snow and rain. Come over here, my friend. What's your name?
Chris Davis.
And where are you from?
San Antonio, Texas.
And where's your wife?
In the bed sleeping right now.
Have you ever experienced a nor'easter before?
No, ma'am, I have not.
Are you excited for this one?
Yes, I am.
All right, we're going to bring it. Maybe you can come out with me and forecast tomorrow. What about that?
I'll do that.
Let's take a look at the maps real quick. I wish I was in San Antonio, Texas, because what's happening right now is some of this energy from the southeast, where we actually have tornadoes across Alabama, is going to combine with energy across the Atlantic and bring us our fourth nor'easter in less than a month. D.C., I'm talking to you, my friends. You could get one of the biggest snowstorms that you have seen in years if some of the forecast totals prevail. And so this is going to be a big deal tomorrow afternoon. That's when it's really going to crank up. Boston, I don't think you're going to get jackpot snowfall totals, but again, National Weather Service now is going higher totals in and around the New York City area. We will keep you up to date. Say hi to your sleeping wife.
Hey, babe, I love you.
Okay.
She's sleeping. She didn't hear that.
Right.
Hopefully she's taping.
All right. Thank you very much, Janice.
Thanks, Janice.
All right. One California community voting to become the no sanctuary city, and it's just happened overnight. Breaking away from the state's laws. Finally, someone sane there. A former city council member here to react.
We're going to win so much, you may even get tired of winning, and you'll say, please, please, it's too much winning.
Time for some news by the numbers, starting with even more winning, $340 million. That's how much Volkswagen is now planning to invest into its Tennessee plant to build a new 5-passenger SUV. Next, 138,000. That's how many people are apparently fed up with liberal California's housing costs and taxes. A Los Angeles research firm finding those people are now fleeing California and heading to Republican-led states like Nevada and Texas. And finally, 98 hours a week. That's how much moms spend working every week, according to a survey by the Welch's Juice Company. That's the equivalent of 2.5 full-time jobs. I believe it. Steve?
Indeed. All right, Ainsley, thank you very much. And on Fox News Alert, overnight, a city in California made history voting to break away from California's sanctuary law. The Los Alamitos Council voted 4-1 to opt out of a new law limiting cooperation with law enforcement and ICE. City Council member and a former mayor of the town, Shelley Hasselbrink, voted last night. She joins us live from LA. Shelley, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Okay, so we've heard so much about this trend out in California. First it was sanctuary cities, then California became a sanctuary state. But last night, your town did what?
What we did is we looked at the mandate, SB 54, that was passed down through the state of California, basically forcing or mandating all of the California cities to adhere to the sanctuary city law. And we looked at that, based on our oath of office, that we took our oath of office to uphold the Constitution of the United States and also the Constitution of California. And when those two conflicted, as SB 54 did conflict, we had to go look back at Article 6 of the Constitution, where the law of the land prevails with the federal government.
Sure.
So based on that, then now we're dealing with legal versus illegal. And it's not really about immigration. It's never been about immigration. It's always been, to me, about illegal immigration. And we need to not support illegal anything in our city. And this was the only recourse that we had not to support this.
Well, Shelley, it's so extraordinary for a lot of people, Shelley, looking in from other parts of the country where the state of California, because they've got this sanctuary law, they can decide, okay, we're gonna follow that law, but we're not gonna follow that law, which just seems crazy.
Right, exactly. And so our only recourse was to look at what was best for our city. We've done that with a lot of mandates. With the marijuana mandate, we looked at our city and we put an ordinance in place that that's not allowed in our city. The cultivation and sale of marijuana is not allowed in our city because we thought that was best. It was in conflict with the state law, but we are doing what's best for our city. We don't want to tie the hands of our law enforcement, and we felt that SB 54 did exactly that.
So, Shelley, how many communities in the state of California actually cooperate with ICE, like your town?
Officially, right now, all of them except us, but I have a feeling that this is going to be a snowball effect in other cities because this wasn't given to the voters to vote on about whether to become a sanctuary state or not. The cities are now being able to speak up on behalf of the voters, and I think you're going to see more and more action in individual cities like this just because we need to get our voices heard, and we found that this is probably the only way to do this.
All right. Standing up to the state capitol, Shelley Hasselbrink, a city council member there in Los Alamitos, just south of Los Angeles. Shelley, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. So what do you think about that? Email us, friends@foxnews.com. Meanwhile, they are two of the biggest names in politics, and a new book is now exposing how the Bidens and the Kerrys use their power for their families to make millions. Author Peter Schweizer will join us live in the next hour to talk about that.